JD here, to Limitless, and this is my F1 2014 video I'll be doing here today. And yeah, to start things off, I'll just give you my impressions of the game. I think it's really good. I think, for me personally, it suits me. The best F1 game for me, of any game I play in terms of raw speed and competitiveness. I feel it suits me perfectly because I think it requires you to be smooth on the steering, smooth on the braking, and also being quite aggressive at the same time, going into corners. But yeah, my first real impressions, the first thing I did was go on Silverstone time trial, and wow, boy, I had a massive shock when I did that, because going to the first turn of Silverstone, I just expected it to go round pretty easy as it did on F1 2013, but that really wasn't the case. I just went completely straight on. And that's good, because the handling mode's actually challenging rather than last game. Because last game was pretty much like scale electrics, and it was just a joke on how easy it is. So yeah, they really made it a lot more challenging on the handling. The traction, I'll be talking about later with the pad versus wheel. The traction, I expected it to be quite a bit harder than what it is. But for me, traction being on the pad is pretty easy, but the high-speed corner grip is pretty much non-existent. It is so understeery, it's a joke. But as I said, I'll be talking about that a bit later in the video. But first impressions are good. Like, I didn't expect it to be that much different, but it really is, and I think they've done a pretty solid job so far. And as I said, I feel it really suits me pretty well. But moving on to the pros of the game, the curbs, the auto-spin curbs, have been not completely taken out, but they've been reduced quite nicely. Around Bahrain, last game, it seemed to be pretty much the worst track for auto-spin curves, but for this game, they're still there, don't get me wrong, but they seem to be nowhere near as violent or as reactive as it was before. So yeah, that's good. Not having curves is another good thing as well. I know that's part of the actual F1 2014 regulations, but I'm glad there's no curves. I'm not really sure if ERS really works, because I feel, just talking about the rich mix, I just feel going to rich, I don't really seem to actually really gain that much speed in the straight or actual lap time. I actually think it's worse sometimes going to rich, because it just creates more wheel spin. As you'll see, I think on like lap 3 or 4 of this gameplay here, I put it in rich for the whole lap and almost lose the car, and I actually go half a second slower than what I did in standard. So a little tip, but I'll be doing tip videos for the game later on. But yeah, a little tip is not to really put in rich and only on the straight is what I'd really do, even on the qualifying lap. I think in the future I'll actually put it in standard for the twisty sections, because it actually gives you better traction coming off the corners. But yeah, that's for another video. When I do my setup tips and tricks video, I'll be talking about that then. But yeah, the tyre wear, it doesn't seem to be as scripted as was last game. Last game was just ridiculous. It's the way it dropped off, and if someone that pitted a lap later than you, they would literally be, if they were driving, let's just say on the same ability, exactly the same way as you were, they'd be about half a second quicker per lap. So, but in this game, it's not the case. It actually seems to be, even if you pitted a lap earlier or someone's pitted a lap later than you, your pace can be quite similar and the same. And it takes quite a while for the tyres to heat up as well. So in a sense, that's actually a bit more realistic from an arcade game, which is, let's be honest. So yeah, those are quite good positives. The setup seems to be, you have to apply a different setup for each track. So yeah, I'd say this game is actually a step forward. I'll just say it's just a more completed version of F1 2013, I'd say. But obviously F1 2015 is where we're going to be expecting quite big changes. But yeah, this game, the tracks seem to be pretty much exactly the same, apart from Bahrain. China, I've noticed, is quite different. Hockenheim is good to drive, as well as Austria as well. They're quite good tracks, and I love this track. Sochi is awesome. That's like one of my favourite tracks. But moving on to a few more of the controversial topics, which is the pad versus wheel. And I promise I'll be completely honest with this. I won't bullshit anyone or be biased or anything in any way. But yeah, the pad, I would 100% say, not on all tracks, but in the race it is definitely OP. because the traction and the tyre wear, it's as simple as that. The traction tyre wear on the pad is just superior compared to the wheel. From racing people like Tiro Rosberg and Triano Tigger, who are both ridiculously quick on the wheel, they're no slouches on the wheel. We can go an average, myself and other people on the pad, we can go about 3 to 4 laps longer than what they can. Obviously, this is a huge fault, really, and for league racing and just general racing, it's gonna suck, really, to be honest, because I don't really see any contests other than tracks. What I will say, excuse me, tracks at Austria and Hockenheim on the wheel. The wheel for me in high speed corners, and Rosberg and Tigger said this, and I'm sure people like Noble would say this and agree as well. High speed corners, the turning is not an issue. They have a lot of grip on turning, but it's just traction. So like Maggers and Beckett's, Silverstone, and trying to think of other tracks like Hockenheim as well, that's pretty much all high speed corners apart from the bottom hairpin. The wheel would be ridiculously good right now. Like Austria and Hockenheim, I feel in the race, and I've raced with Tigger and Rosberg in the race, doesn't really seem to be an issue in the race around there, and a few other tracks, because since they've got so much of an advantage in the high speed, it doesn't really matter about the lack of traction because they can just make it up in those corners. So some tracks it can work really well. That Spa middle sector, the wheels ridiculous as well, but I would say over the course of about 80 to 70% of the tracks, I'd say over the course of the whole season, if we go talk about AOR, I'd say it'd be very, very, very impressive if someone on the wheel actually won the whole thing, because it's, in a race tyre where they drop. It's not a ridiculous drop, it's not like 2 to 3 seconds, but it's sometimes up to a second a lap, at least half a second a lap, and as you can see there, that's me being enriched in the lap, and it just gives me massive wheel spin. But it just seems to be in most tracks and races that myself and I've raced Tigger, that after about 4 to 5 laps they can keep up, but after that it's history, really. But the wheel on 1 lap pace, I think is probably, I'd say it's probably quicker. That's not me trying to be biased. I think that's hopefully people on the wheel would actually agree with me in that. Like people like Rosberg, Tigger, and Noble, like over 1 lap, it's not worse. It's definitely it can easily match the pad, and sometimes, well, I think quite a lot of the time it's quicker than the pad, because on low fuel they don't really have to worry about tyre wear for a whole lap. But in terms of a race, there really is no contest for me. It seems the wheel is really struggling quite badly, and that's something I really don't want to see, because as much as it benefits me and I can win races and that, but I don't really, like, for me personally, I hate beating people in races or in anything really when it's not on equal terms. Like someone has a lag spike and that something like that, I'd rather let them pass and lose the race than beat them just because they've been in the lead beating me and they've had like a 5-second lag spike or something like that. That's just like the worst way to win, and I don't really think anyone wants to win that way. So hopefully they can sort that out, but I don't really see it happening because they'll be focusing so much on the next game that I don't think they'll be bringing out a patch for this. So I think we'll have to test it a bit more, like in 50%. Or I haven't really tested it, but I've only done 150% so far. But Rosberg or people on the wheel, a few good people on the wheel, there was no one in there that you could really test it against that properly. But hopefully it's not as bad as what it is. But at the moment, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's definitely the pad is the better controller, as you can say, on this game out of the two. So as much as it benefits me, it feels really nice to drive in the pad, especially in the race. But they both have their downsides and negatives. That whereas pads is just understeery as hell. There's literally almost no turning for like high speed corners, but low grip is pretty good. But the traction's awesome on the pad. Whereas the wheel has ridiculously amount of grip in the high speed corners, but struggles a lot in the low speed and traction. Apparently it's an absolute joke. So hopefully they can sort out for next game. I can never see it being completely equal, but if they could get it to the same gap as it was in F1 2013, where I really think it was only about 2 to 3 tenths in the wheel's favour on most times, and then I would take that. I'd take that. That'd be absolutely fine. So yeah, those are like the negatives really. But overall, the game, I feel it's the best one for me that Codemasters have actually done. Like this is the one I enjoy it way more than last game already. It's just a lot more challenging. F1 2012 was good, but for me, it just was really good. Like just like the setups and just a general raw challenge of the game. You actually have to work for it, and I feel, which I didn't say earlier, I feel in this game the skill gap is going to be a lot bigger than what it was in last game. Because not saying that last game was really easy or anything, it was still difficult, don't get me wrong, especially with no assists. It's always going to be difficult, but this game, it seems to be, I think there's going to be a bigger difference between the people who are really comfortable and experienced compared to the people who aren't that experienced. I think it's going to be quite a big gap, and it will take people quite a while to get used to it. But for me, it seems to really suit my driving style. Straight away, I was actually really comfortable with the game. But just one more negative as well, actually, just the corner cutting system, as you saw on that lap there, and you might see again here. Yeah, it's just, that's something that's going to be really hard to fix, but it's really, really bad. Like this track, I really don't think can be used in league racing because the setup or the corner cutting and extending is absolutely ridiculous. But those are my first impressions of the game. The first impressions are good, but obviously quite controversial, the power versus wheel, but that's my opinion on it. Let me know what you want to see for the rest of my channel. Do you want me to commentate all my videos? And cheers for watching, and see you later.
Biting time that you don't own. You leave me